Hi, I'm Garry Harrington. I'm the naturalist at Rum Village Nature Center, and I teach people about nature and wildlife. And there's a lot of great things going on in our natural world pertaining to nature and wildlife right here. There are a lot of animals that are coming back after being gone from this area for a long, long time. Some of their numbers were really down. Some were gone altogether from this area. And now they're coming back. And we often hear the worst things about nature and wildlife and what's occurring there. We don't often hear enough of the good things that are happening. So I want to talk about some of those good things that are happening right here in our community. And I have a program that I do occasionally called the Comeback Kids. And I call it the Comeback Kids because they're doing just that. They're coming back in some cases really good numbers. So let's take a look at those guys and look at some of the positive things that are happening in our natural world. We will start with a skin here. I have a few props here that I'm going to be using today. And here's one thing they all have in common. None of them are from things that we went out and shot or killed to get their parts from. Unfortunately, there are plenty of animals that die of old age or get hit by the roads. Other things might happen to them, but we definitely do not kill them. We're here to help the wildlife, not to kill it. But this is the largest mammal we have in the state of Indiana now, a white-tailed deer. And so white-tailed deer, here's the weird thing about white-tailed deer that people would never guess. White-tailed deer at one time were wiped out from the state of Indiana in the 1930s. By the 1930s, it was a case where there were no white-tailed deer left in Indiana. And we call that term extirpation. They're extirpated from the state. Not extinct. Extinct means they're gone forever like dinosaurs, but they are wiped out from the area. So we got smart. We decided that we would pass laws that said you couldn't kill as many deer as you want to, whenever you want to. We had to reintroduce them from nearby states. So they were trapped from Michigan and Wisconsin and even as far away as the Carolinas and brought back to Indiana. And so the population through management went up, 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 and now we have white-tailed deer everywhere, including close to downtown South Bend. So definitely white-tailed deer are a tremendous comeback story. What else? Well, an animal here I'm sure everybody will recognize, a beaver. Some people might be aware of beaver being in St. Joseph County and around the South Bend area. Some people perhaps not. Here's something that people probably didn't know. There were lots and lots of beaver here many years ago in the 1600s. So many beaver and other kinds of wild animals in the area that they wanted to trap for their pelts, that it prompted famous explorers like La Salle to come to the Midwest. He was, by legend, the first European settler to come into this area. And they were looking for pelts of beaver. And so most of the beaver in the Midwest were wiped out. They used their fur actually to, of all things, to make a kind of felt that was used in a hat. That was all the rage. So they wiped out almost all of the beaver in Europe, so they came to new trapping grounds, namely the United States in the late 1600s. And so they wiped out a lot of the beaver in the area. Finally, they're coming back, and now once again we have beaver on the St. Joseph River after probably a very long, long absence. So the numbers of beaver are now going up, up, up again. Another success story and another comeback kid. One more at least in terms of showing you different kinds of furs. This is one that some folks might recognize as being a coyote. So we kind of take coyote for granted now. They're so populated in St. Joseph County that we see them in some cases very close to downtown South Bend, like the areas at Rum Village. So at one time, these guys were hunted extensively. There was a bounty on their head. They were shot, and they actually got money for bringing in part of their skin. Sometimes just a single ear, and they would get money for them via a bounty. So we quit doing that. We realize now that predators are a very natural part of the ecosystem. We need predators to help keep populations of animals under control. And now they're flourishing. They've slowly worked their way back into the Midwest from the West. And now they're found throughout most of the eastern United States. But at one time, you didn't see coyotes here in South Bend, certainly not in Indiana. They're now coming back. Other exciting news, especially when it comes to the bird world. We could talk a lot about the birds that have made a comeback. So we can't talk about them all, but we'll talk about a few. Let's start with this guy. I'm going to turn him around here. And here we have, if you look at his tail, you'll see that it's red. So this is definitely a red-tailed hawk. One thing I can say, having lived in South Bend almost all of my life, I'm seeing firsthand positive changes in terms of the return of animals. This is one you just didn't really see all that often 40 years ago, 50 years ago, like you do now. Certainly not in the city. We see these guys in the city and all around the exterior of South Bend and certainly throughout St. Joseph County. So red-tailed hawks definitely made a big comeback. One of the reasons we are seeing them now returning, a lot of predators in general we're seeing returning because of the fact that people don't readily hunt them or shoot them. Some people weren't necessarily hunting them, they were shooting them because they thought they were getting their livestock, they thought maybe they were getting their animals. We know that they're actually beneficial because they eat more than anything rodents. So we're seeing a lot of red-tailed hawks in this area. I see them all the time on the bypass. I see them all the time kind of perching on wires around the periphery of our city and throughout St. Joseph County and actually all the Michiana area. All right, we're going to switch to another kind of bird of prey, a barred owl. So barred owls are a kind of an owl that is a wetland species. We've lost nearly 90% of our wetlands in the state of Indiana. So having these guys coming back is really encouraging. It's not just things like the red-tailed hawk or specifically barred owls, but birds of prey in general, the numbers are coming up. One of the reasons is, yes, we're not shooting them. Another reason is we're not using toxic chemicals like we used to use in days gone by, things like DDT. DDT was a chemical used in the 1940s and 50s. It was used extensively in agricultural purposes to kill insects that might be eating the crops that farmers are growing. We found that it goes right up the food chain. It starts at the bottom, goes right to the top, and it wipes out everything pretty much in the food chain, including the very, very top, predators like this barred owl. So barred owls are now seen around Rum Village Nature Center. They're seen all over the place in big numbers. And so barred owls are coming back, and they are seen and heard regularly, actually right here at Rum Village, which is very, very exciting. All right, so we talked about barred owls a little bit. We're going to talk about another kind of predator. And actually, this guy is pretty famous for the people of South Bend. This is a bird of prey. He's actually a Peregrine Falcon, and his name is Zephyr. Zephyr lived downtown for many, many years, and he and his wife raised a lot of kids right in downtown South Bend. So amazing for two reasons. One, they're an endangered species, and they were reintroduced throughout the state of Indiana, especially on tops of buildings, tall buildings like the County City building in downtown South Bend. There was a nesting box that was placed there for them, and we waited and waited and waited. We waited 10 years before we finally got the first birds of prey, like this Peregrine Falcon, to take up residence. So they've been there ever since. And the other thing about these guys is, right in downtown South Bend, this is exciting, the fastest animal on our planet lives in downtown South Bend, capable of going actually 200 miles an hour. All right, I'm going to turn this guy around because, look, he had an accident. He lost his foot. It's believed that his foot was lost in a trap. And despite losing that foot, he survived for at least a year or more. only with 1 foot, and he is still able to feed himself and help his wife, Guinevere, to feed young downtown. So really an amazing, resilient animal. He's maybe our ultimate comeback guy because he lived despite having some controversy there. All right, I'm going to put him there, and I'm going to take a look actually at another comeback guy. I'll put him down here just for safekeeping and take a look. This is a comeback kid that maybe people don't even know is a comeback kid. Some people are not so happy that these guys have come back in the numbers they have, but I guarantee you 40 years ago, definitely 50 years ago, seeing Canada geese around this area was a rarity because you just didn't see these birds very often. They were seen in more northerly areas, but not throughout the United States like they are now. And actually, back in the day, farmers were tickled pink when they had Canada geese landing on their property, so much so that they would encourage them to stay by throwing down grain for them to eat. Now it's a success story, and maybe some people think it's a bit of a success story gone wild because they're everywhere where we have water. We've made it very conducive for them to exist right here in South Bend and throughout the United States because we have plenty of ponds, very many of them man-made, like on golf courses, and we have plenty of water on universities like near Notre Dame, etc. And there's plenty of grass. So we've got water and grass, and that's the combination that you need. These guys are considered two-legged lawnmowers, so they were pretty rare. Now they're everywhere. So this is an incredible success story. Whether we necessarily recognize it or not, it is a success. All right, another picture here. Wild turkeys. Wild turkeys by 1900, goodbye. There were no wild turkeys in Indiana. They were hunted to extirpation. They were wiped out in a lot of the Midwest. We had to reintroduce these guys. And so they were reintroduced to places like Potato Creek and really in various places in St. Joseph County. And by the time it was, say the year 2000, I was seeing them around South Bend and at Rum Village. And now they're found pretty much everywhere, including like white-tailed deer, the exterior of the city. So thank goodness wild turkeys are now becoming kind of a dime a dozen. That was not the case. It was a rare sight. Now it's a relatively common sight. So reintroduction does work. That's proof positive that if we do things right, it's not too late. In most cases, it's never too late for wildlife. We just have to be smart how we manage things. Including maybe the ultimate comeback in some ways, our national symbol, the bald eagle. Bald eagles were dangerously low by the 1950s and 1960s, to the point where we thought we might lose bald eagles, at least in the lower 48. They're still found in good numbers in Canada and Alaska, but they were becoming very rare in the lower part of the United States. Until we quit using DDT, if we wouldn't have stopped using DDT, we would have been in big trouble. When we stopped using DDT, the numbers went up and up and up. It turns out that when the mother went to incubate her eggs, she would crush her own eggs. It made the eggs fragile. The same was true of other birds of prey, including peregrine falcons. So she'd inadvertently crush her own eggs. So once we started using chemicals like DDT, the numbers started coming back up. And once we learned how to better manage them, they started coming back. They were an endangered species for a long, long time. Now they're one notch below endangered. They're threatened. They're still somewhat in trouble, but the numbers hopefully will keep going down, down, down to where they won't be threatened anymore either. Hopefully these guys will be dime a dozen. They were gone from northern Indiana until relatively recently. They were gone from northern Indiana, period, for about the last 125 years. Now they're at Potato Creek State Park. Now they're right on the St. Joseph River at St. Pat's County Park, 5 miles or so just north of downtown South Bend. It's amazing. You can see them migrating through in the wintertime. You can see them migrating through in the fall. You can see them in pretty good numbers right along the river, Elkhart, South Bend, Mishawaka. You can find these guys, once again, in various locations that you didn't used to see them. So they're nesting on the St. Joseph River. That's a huge comeback. Last but not least, how about this guy? How about the black bear? Have they made it back yet? No. But it was just a few years ago, I could honestly say it was 140 years since we've had confirmed sightings of wild black bear being in Indiana. They made it down to northern India, of all places, by southern Michigan. And they made it actually around Elbel property. And they went all the way to Michigan City, and then they went back up to Michigan again. And I'm afraid that poor bear did not make it. So the next year, a bear came from the opposite direction into Indiana. A bear came from the state of Kentucky into southern Indiana. And I'm not sure where his fate lies. I hope he's still alive, but maybe it'll just be a matter of time. Maybe within some people's lifetime, we will see wild black bear again in Indiana. That would probably occur in the southern part of the state, where there's a lot more wild country and rougher country in southern Indiana. But I'm glad to report that we do have good things happening in our community in terms of wildlife. Things that used to be rare are no longer rare. It didn't happen accidentally. It had some intervention on the part of man. So once again, it's never too late to help wildlife as far as I'm concerned. It's proof positive that it's never too late, considering all the animals that are indeed comeback kids. Thank you very much.